Hi class, just stopping by to touch bases with you. We are rapidly approaching the conclusion of the semester. Can you believe it? Today is the due date for our current module, and we are now moving on to modules 9.1 and 10.1. This week, you want to make sure, please note that you have 9.1, 10.1, as well as an exam. So you have three things that you're looking at, 9.1, 10.1, as well as an exam. I have emailed several of you who've missed one or two of like your 7.1s or your 8.1, like you did one of the writing assignments but not the other one. So if you received the email from me and you're like, I did all my assignments, go in and check, because what some of you did is you did one of the writing assignments and overlooked that second writing assignment. So make sure you check your email, go in and take a look at your grades. I will continue grading today, so if you have any questions to get send me a response. This week in this module, we're moving on, we're wrapping up, we're starting to talk about corrections and sentencing now. So what is the purpose of corrections? What is the purpose of sentencing? We start off first defining indeterminate sentencing and determinate sentencing, and what is the difference between the two. So if you think of something like determinate, that's pretty much set, right? If you're determined, you're set. Determinate sentence is actually a body of legislation that is set and defined by our legislators, meaning there's no room to negotiate as far as how long. If per legislation, if you commit this crime, it's 5 years. Period. So that's what you want to remember with determinate sentence. A judge cannot reduce or make any discretion on that when it comes to corrections. It's all preset by our legislators. Now, if you do indeterminate sentence, the indeterminate sentencing, is a term of incarceration where a judge has a minimum or a maximum, meaning they have the leeway within those parameters to decide what the sentence would be. So you may hear people say, I'm facing 5 to 10 years, meaning that's the minimum or the maximum. The judge ultimately has the discretion to decide that's how long the sentence will be. So make sure you understand the difference between determinate and indeterminate sentencing. We also move on to talk about, when we're talking about sentencing and we're talking about corrections, what is the goal or what is the punishment? What is the goal or the outcome or objective for corrections and for sentencing? And this takes a mind and it's a beast of its own, and people will argue and make different things. But to highlight just a couple of the reasons why some may say, where you have retribution, which what will retribution say? Retribution is like, you committed this crime, you need to do the time. It's almost like if you want to say lex talionis, an eye for an eye. Then we have deterrence, which is the purpose of it is saying that we want to stop the person as well as others from committing a crime. So under deterrence, you have two types of deterrence. You have specific deterrence, I can't speak this morning, and general deterrence. So some people will say that the goal is to deter people. Others may say incapacitation, meaning they need to just be locked away. Some may say rehabilitation. We may want to try to get them back, fix them, make them whole again before we put them out. And some would say restoration, to restore not only the criminal, or if you want to say, but the community as well as the victim. So those are things that you want to look at when you say that and understand that. So retribution is a philosophy or goal of punishment that holds the offenders responsible for the crime, saying, you did this, you're going to serve the time, you're going to do that. So making sure that you understand. And if you take corrections, you go more into that. But saying, okay, so when we say we're putting people in jail, when we look at our prison system, and you hear people saying our prisons are overpopulated, it comes to the question of what is the purpose or what is the goal of our prisons. That's why you have some who make the argument that our jails are overpopulated with petty or drug offenses. Should they be incarcerated, rehabilitated? Should we have them on probation? So these are different things to look at is when you're doing that. The three principles of sentencing, So I talked about the goals or the philosophies behind. Now we're going to talk about the principles. Proportionality. You want to make sure that it's proportion. So the example I give, if you were to murder someone, or not even say murder, let's say if you were to, I don't know, if you were able to steal, let's say, $50,000, $65,000, and you would only be sentenced to 2 weeks in jail, is that proportionate? Maybe let me say $1 million. Make it real, like $1 million, and you get sentenced. Well, for $1 million, you were sentenced to 2 months in prison. that may not deter, that may not do, that's not proportionate for what you've done. Then you're gonna look at the social debt that's in there. And the last one I'm gonna have you look up, but make sure you could look and define the 3 principles of sentencing. I gave you 2. You need to pick the last one. So the first 2 that I supplied you with, proportionality and social debt. Make sure you look that last one to understand. I'm trying to think what else we're going to talk about. So in that, looking at correction, sentencing, the goal and the purpose of it, the evolution of it, kind of like what are we looking at, what are we trying to do, and then we move on and we start talking about corrections. Sentencing is one thing, and that's when they actually go and you're actually given the punishment handed down, what's going to happen for that. Now corrections is dealing strictly with incarcerations, if you want to say, or incarceration or different type of, it's pretty much incarceration when your freedom is taken away. So with that, you're going to look at justification for utilizing community-based correction programs. So why would we do community-based correction programs? One, it's low cost, right? If you're getting others involved to help us, it's going to be able to alleviate some of the costs. It helps to deal with some of the overcrowding in the correctional facilities. So like your halfway homes or your probation, limited things. So that's actually helping to eliminate some of that. So with that, make sure that you look over for Chapter 10, when you talk about corrections, you're going to have more short answers. So make sure you look and understand. I'll give you some of the questions you want to look at. The justification for community-based corrections you want to be able to tell. The factors that cause prison population to grow dramatically over this last decade. So what are some of the contributing factors to why our prison system has increased so much? And then you're going to want to look at, from your taking what you've learned from the text and from the PowerPoint, and also with your opinion and maybe a little additional research, what are some of the consequences of a high rates of incarceration for our community, for our society, for our country? What happens as a result of that? So those are some of the things you want to be able to do and discuss when you get into 10.1 and you're looking at probation, parole, community-based policing. That's when we're actually talking about corrections and trying to correct the behavior that was ultimately, or the crime that was actually committed, that offender. I am just all over the place this morning. It's so early. Looking at some of the court cases that you want to be able to identify what court established 3 stages, the procedure of the limited due process. You want to know what court case did that, the limited due process rights for probationers. Make sure you know that one to be able to look at that. Which court case dealt with probation was entitled to an attorney during probation revocation process. So when they were going through the revocation process, being revoked, who was entitled? Why were they entitled to have an attorney? What case set that precedent? Trying to think what else as I go through your things. So I don't want to talk too long. I'm already at 8 minutes. That's kind of long for this. But I wanted to touch bases with you and let you know. Remember, after 9.1, 10 in your exam, your final exam will open. So your final exam will open and your final exam will be due May 10th. Please let me know if you have any questions. You do not have to take the final exam if you have a 90 or above, a percentage 90. That's after you've done everything. If you have a 90 or above, you do not have to take the final exam. So make sure you take a look at your grades and see what your current percentage is to see if you have to take take the final exam. How you can calculate your grade, I can go in and put the percentage as well in here. But if you look at the total possible points, and your points that you have and you divide it, you actually get your percentage. But to make it easier, I'll probably go in and add your grade in there for you as well. And again, this is after everything else has been completed. So do not just look at where you're at now. You need to complete everything, 10.1 exam, everything. And then if you have a 90 or above, you are exempt from the final. So if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I will talk to you guys soon.